welcome to Just One More Watch. If you're new around these parts, my name is Jody. I love watches and I would love it if you would subscribe to the channel by hitting the big button that says subscribe on it. Bit of a treat for us both today. I'm going to review one of the most exclusive and most expensive Seiko dive watches there is. Certainly the most expensive and exclusive that I've reviewed on the channel to date. It is of course the Seiko SLA017. Now this one was loaned to me by a good friend and collector, Zane. Zane has got an astonishing collection of old and new, luxury and affordable. I'll leave a link to his Instagram in the description of the video. You should definitely give him a follow. Now the SLA017 was released in 2017 and it's essentially an updated, modernised version of the 62 Mass Diver, the granddaddy of all Seiko dive watches. Apparently Seiko put one of their top designers on the job, Nobuhiro Kasugi. He was the man entrusted with modernising the 62 Mass. It must have been a tough afternoon for old Kasugi-san because it's essentially the same watch. Now this watch was very well received by Seiko collectors and aficionados. There are a couple of very positive reviews of the watch on YouTube and a number of other equally gushing written reviews on the internet. One by the Watch Lounge even suggested that it was the best dive watch that you'll never own. But is it really? I'm not so sure. I'm going to do a very quick review of this, dimensions and specifications, etc. Then I'm going to give you 5 things I like about the SLA017 and 5 things I don't like about the SLA017. And then we'll decide whether it really is the best watch that neither of us will ever own. Let's flip the camera and get on with it. So let's get on with it then. Just under 40mm, Seiko claimed 39.9mm in diameter. Likewise, just over 14mm thick, I measure 14.3, 47.8mm lug tip to lug tip. So a very precise set of dimensions today, if not necessarily conventional. Similarly, 19mm lug width. Just as well, they do supply a rubber strap and a bracelet. It may be a strap monster, but you probably don't have all that many 19mm in the house. Now on the supplied rubber strap, this one weighs in at 111 grams, so there's a fair chunk, a fair bit of heft to the head of the watch, quite thick, quite chunky. On the supplied bracelet, sized up for me, 7-inch wrist, this one weighs in at 162 grams, so pretty much spot on, pretty much what you'd expect for a stainless steel diver at 40mm diameter. And it is indeed 316L stainless steel case, crown, bezel and case back. Now not an exhibition case back, bit of a shame. I would have liked to have had a look at that 8L35 movement, but apparently that printed dolphin on there is again in keeping with the original 62 Mass. It's the same image that featured on that one. You do, however, get a piece of truly gorgeous box domed sapphire crystal, one of the nicest bits of glass that I have seen on any watch at any price. Plenty of clear coat AR coating on the underside, meaning you get to look at that beautiful dial even in bright sunshine. Now the bezel, 120 click unidirectional rotating dive time. What I would describe as quite a gentle bezel action. It's not one of these ones that's massively clicky and clunky. Kind of discreet bezel action with just a touch of bounce before it locks back in place, but nothing too untoward. Ceramic bezel insert, just a lume pip. I'll put the lume video up later on. So the case design is pretty simple, given that this one is pretty much a copy and paste of the 62 Mass. Straight sides here, high Zaratsu polish that we've come to know and love from Seiko. A nice deep and lustrous polish. Circular brushing on those lugs, but very simple. They haven't added any extra facets or chamfers. They didn't really need to. Drilled lugs, truncated lug ends and drilled lugs here. Again, very much in keeping with the original. Now, as is the crown, high polish on the end, Seiko logo embossed. Nice and grippy, unguarded crown, vintage style, and a coin edge bezel. Zoomed right in on the dial and it is gorgeous. Deep grey, anthracite, Lots of sunburst, quite a powerful sunburst effect. I'll take it outside into some natural light. It is raining today, but then this one does have a screw down crown and 200 meters of water resistance, so it should be fine. It's also got a mixture of applied and painted. The logo, interestingly enough, is just painted on. Interesting because the original 62 mass had an applied logo, but they decided just to paint Seiko automatic underneath the 12. Divers 200 meters, ISO certified. Dia Shock 26 jewel above the index at 6, and Japan 8L35 you can see printed on just to the left of the 6 o'clock index. So we've got a kind of double size, double width baton at 12, 1.5 width at the 6 and the 9, and single width batons everywhere else, and they are lovely. Quite thick, quite tall, adding some depth to the dial overall. High polished edges. This thing really does play with the light nicely. Ceramic bezel insert, gorgeous piece of box sapphire, and all those high polished surfaces on the dial. Very, very pretty watch. Similarly, the hands, high polish on the top. We've got a kind of brushed beveled edge to either edge, and the traditional paddle second hand pushing all the way out to the edge of the minute track there. Date frame at the 3 o'clock, again high polished surround matching the rest of the indexes. It's beautiful, it's understated, but it is gorgeous, this one. Very, very pretty watch to look at. There is also plenty of lume. Seiko's Lumibright is well known. You get that bright green initial glow and it does last very well. As you can see there, the bezel insert is not fully lumed, but the pip is lumed, which is all you need. I can't honestly see too many of these ones being used as hardcore dive watches anyway. Can you? Let's talk about the movement then. 8L35, not a movement I've encountered before. Apparently it's the undecorated cousin, the slightly less glamorous cousin of the 9S movements as fitted to Grand Seikos. This one is also fitted to the Marine Master, some of the other top-end Seiko dive watches. It was designed to be installed in their dive watches. 26 joules, hacking and hand winding. High beat, 4 Hz, 28,800 vibrations per hour. So you get that smooth sweep of the second hand. Now, amplitude is alright, beat error perhaps a little higher than I would have liked, as is that variance. That will feature a little later on. What I will say though is it is regulated regardless of the positional variance. I'll flip it round so we've got the dial pointing out the way, hasn't really changed much at all, and crown down, again, no change. Very, very consistent, if perhaps not quite as accurate as I would have liked at the price. So that's the basics, dimensions and specifications out the way. Let's get on to the slightly more subjective elements of this video. 5 things I like, 5 things I don't like about the SLA017. Starting with the positives. Number 1, it's gorgeous. I mean, look at it. I think they've got this one just about spot on. The sunburst is just about perfect. The indexes are shiny but not too shiny. Similarly, the ceramic bezel insert. Case is pretty simple. The finish on the case is pretty simple, like I said, but very, very nice. Overall, it just works. Lots and lots of surfaces to bounce the light around here, but it doesn't look gaudy, it doesn't look blingy, it doesn't look over the top. It is just about spot on. A very, very handsome watch, and one that I would be delighted to have on my wrist. It is seriously attractive. And talking of having it on my wrist, the second thing I like is that it wears beautifully as well. These cases, not a huge amount of curvature to those lugs, and it is a little bit thick at 14mm, but I think spot on. It wears superbly. This rubber strap is also incredibly comfortable. It would be a watch that you could wear all day. No problem at all. A real kind of long term. You get very, very comfortable with this one on your wrist, I am sure. The third thing I like, one for the train spotters this. There are only 2,000 of these in the world after all. It's for guys who want people to know they spent a lot of money on a Seiko. It's not a watch you buy if you want to show off, because most people will look at it, they'll see the Seiko name and be like, meh, you can buy them for $100. So it's one for the aficionados, it's one for the Seiko fanboys, it's one that says, I love this brand, I bought this watch knowing exactly what it was about, I understand the history and heritage of the brand, the model, and I'm okay with paying a ton of money for a watch that on the surface of it looks quite ordinary. I think there's a bit of inverse snobbery built into that therefore, and I really appreciate the watch for it. $3,400 is a lot of money to spend on a watch that doesn't have a premium brand on the dial, that doesn't really display overtly how much money you've spent on it. So definitely one for the fanboys, for people who are very comfortable with spending a ton of money on a watch that doesn't necessarily shout out that you've spent a ton of money on a watch, for hardcore collectors therefore, just like Zane. The fourth thing I like is that it is a limited edition. If I was going to spend this much money on a watch, I would definitely want it to be a limited edition. The more limited, the better. As I mentioned, there are 2,000 of these. If I'd bought one, I'd be happier if there were only 100 of them in the world. It's a reissue, they've limited it, it's expensive, you want that exclusivity. So I'm happy with the fact that it is a limited edition. But perhaps I would have liked it to have been even more limited than it actually is. And the fifth thing I like about the SLA017 is this rubber strap. It is without a doubt the softest, most compliant and most comfortable rubber strap that I have ever seen or encountered on a watch. You can buy these. I saw one on eBay for kind of mid 200s and that's new. If you've got a watch with 19mm lug width and you fancy treating yourself to one of these waffles, nice Seiko retainer there in black as well, all very in keeping with the style of the watch. Incredibly comfy. If this is going to be a long-term wear for you, then the strap is just about perfect for its purpose. However, I'm going to segue effortlessly into my 5 things that I don't like by talking about the buckle and tang. Very, very ordinary for the price. I know they've branded it on the underside, but it just looks so dull. They could have done something a little bit better there, I'm sure. I would also have expected them to have done a better job with the bracelet for $3,400 US. Don't get me wrong, it's the best bracelet that I've encountered so far in a Seiko, but that doesn't say very much. Their bracelets aren't known to be outstanding. Push pins, collar and pin system, $3,400. Please, Seiko, come on, you could have done something better with that. The clasp's all right, kind of chamfered edges there, plenty of micro adjusts, Seiko there, double pushover security. It's all right, but it's pretty inauspicious for the price. And the diver's extension, oh, I mean, that is no different to the stuff that I've encountered on the Mini Turtle, Samurai, etc, etc. They could have done a lot better, I suspect, for the price that they were asking with this bracelet. Complaint number 3, regulated it may be, but the stated tolerances of this 8L35 movement are -10 to +15 seconds per day. That's not great considering how much you're paying for one. Now, it's a Japanese watch, so by virtue of that fact, it cannot be COSC certified. COSC is -4 to +6 per day. I would have expected this one to have been running within those parameters, say plus or minus 5 seconds per day. Bit cheeky of Seiko giving themselves that much of a leeway, -10, +15. You can pick one of these up running consistently at +14 seconds per day and you can't do anything about it. You can't send it back because Seiko have given themselves that operational envelope. Yeah, I would have expected more. Rolex, for example, ±2 seconds cased. That's why you pay the big bucks for one of those, I guess. My 5th complaint about the SLA017 is the packaging. It's rubbish for a watch costing over $3 grand. This is the instruction manual and prospects tag from my Seiko Samurai. This is the instruction manual and prospects tag from the SLA017. I mean, a paper hang tag. Surely to goodness, this being a limited edition and being a kind of halo model, they could have done something a bit more upscale than that, Seiko. And the box is very ordinary. I know it's not about the packaging, and the more money that's spent on the packaging generally means there's less money spent on the watch, but you know, pretty inauspicious given the price tag. It doesn't feel special at all. My final complaint, complaint number 5, is, you guessed it, the price. $3,400 is a ton of money for a watch with Seiko on the dial. I reckon you go into an Omega dealer, play hardball with them, you'd pretty much get a brand new Seamaster for the same money. And I don't think even the most hardcore Seiko file would argue that this is a better watch technically than the Seamaster. It's different though. I mean, I get it, it's beautiful. It is one for the fans, for the collectors, people who adore Seiko as a brand and are prepared to stump up more than this watch is worth to have one in their collections. It's beautiful. I think it's very comfortable, it's very wearable. I'm not sure how many of the 2000 made will end up as daily drivers, which is a bit of a shame because it would be a great watch to wear long term. Bracelet isn't all that flashy, but it is nice and comfortable, as is that rubber strap. Nice combination of the two as well. So then, is this the best dive watch that I'll never own? I'm not so sure. I think it's probably the best Seiko dive watch that I'll never own, but I think there are plenty of other divers from other brands out there that are better than this one that I'm also unlikely to own. So there you have it. Big thank you again to Zane for loaning me this one in for review. What did you think then? Is it the best dive watch that you'll never own, or are you going to save your pennies and get one of the 2000 that are currently in circulation somewhere around the world? I'm not convinced myself personally. I love it, it looks beautiful, but there are just too many compromises, too many flaws for a watch costing $3,400 US. The packaging is a shambles, and that bracelet really doesn't belong on a watch north of $3,000. But hey, who am I to argue with the 2,000 people that paid top dollar for this one? If you're one of them, I assume you absolutely adore your watch and it's not going anywhere anytime soon, regardless of what idiots like me on YouTube think. If you're not one of the 2,000 people who picked up the SLA017 for $3,400 or the equivalent in your local currency, I don't think you need to lose too much sleep about that necessarily. It's a great watch, but just too many compromises to justify that astronomical price tag. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.